Good morning. How we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit. Welcome to episode 4 of my vlog. And in this one, we step up to 2.5, and the title is No Joker Clickbait. It is a very, very bad session for us. So we'll go through a few hands from this session, have some fun, and without further ado, let's get right into it. So for this session, we head on down to Tampa, Florida. I had to pick up a new desk for my office, and I only had the specific one that I wanted at that location, which is just fine since it's right next to Seminole Hard Rock anyway, so no problem whatsoever. Go to IKEA, pick up the desk, get a belly full of plant-based meatballs, and on we... hold on one sec. Hello? Yeah, I'm recording the session right now. Wait, what do you mean, show a picture of my food? Who wants to see a picture of plant-based meatballs? Seriously? If I do, they're gonna smash that like button and sub. Alright, fine. Here we go. So anyway, head over to the Hard Rock, planning on putting in a 1-2 session for y'all. So when I get there, get seated, try to figure out with the floor if I can get any video recording done, and unfortunately they tell me I cannot. So decided to rack up from playing 1-2 down about $10 after my sugar-free Red Bull, and then I jump over to 2.5 and get started. And I only brought 1.3k with me for the session because I was just planning on playing 1-2 for y'all. So I didn't really feel like hitting the ATM, so I decided, okay, see what we can do with 1.3k playing a little 2.5. So let's get into hand number 1 and get started. So like I said, there was no video recording allowed in the room, so we'll do the best we can to replay these hands. Let's start with this first one. This is early-ish in the session. Sit down, open to 15 from the cutoff with Queen 9 suited, totally standard. End up getting 3-bet by the small blind, who has a mustache, so dare I really say more, and the big blind decides to flat. And the big blind was an extremely fishy, whaley kind of player, and I'd only been here for maybe like 15 minutes so far, and I think he's been involved in just about every single hand. There's been conversation between him and other players, and he's definitely kind of talking face up that he does not have much of a poker strategy in the slightest. So in this situation, given the fact that I'm closing action, I have position, and we got some good people involved in this hand, I'm not going to fold Queen 9, so we're just going to call and go forward from there. So go 3-way to the flop, Queen 9-3, flopping top 2 in a 3-bet pot is always wonderful. End up facing a bet from the small blind, a raise to 200 by the big blind, and it's our action. So obviously at this point we are never ever folding. It's simply a conversation of do we call here and try to induce, or do we shove it ourselves? Now I decided to make the shove and go forward with kind of 2 different rationales. First rationale is the big blind. If they have anything like a Queen X or a 9X or a Jack 10 or a hearts, any kind of hand like that, I think they're going to put the extra 300 in right this moment. No real reason to just get tricky here, call, and possibly let them get away from stuff on the turn. I just see get it in right this moment. You're going to commit with a massive equity edge against that individual, go forward. The other consideration is the small blind. Now you might say, well, if we shove, maybe he considers folding aces and kings and ace-queen kind of hands. Okay, fine, but this is the kind of player who I did not think that was really going to happen very often. That, you know, it's only been 15-20 minutes playing at this table, so it's not like I have a massive sample size or anything. Just seemed like the kind of player who was probably just going to get really, really sticky with it. And it's not like if I call, I'm going to induce bluffs or anything like that. I'm just giving him better odds when he has, you know, the draws that can draw correctly. I just think overall he's going to make more mistakes if I jam. I think both of them will overall, and as such, jam over call, go forward from there. So as it rolls out, end up getting called by the small blind, who is not super happy. He's kind of mumbling under his breath, yeah, one of you has at least 2 pair, and it kind of seemed very obvious he had aces or kings at that stage in the game, and the big blind ends up calling as well. So there is going to be a side pot between the 2 of these players, and the turn is not great necessarily for me with that 10 of spades. So at this stage in the game, small blind checks, big blind puts them all in, small blind continues grumbling and makes that call pretty darn quickly. River is the 8 of clubs, and not feeling super great about this one. If anyone had a heart draw, chances are it had a jack in it a decent chunk of the time, so not feeling super great about that. Small blind ends up flipping up aces. Good, 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 and the big blind slow rolls Queen 10. And unfortunately, they end up shipping the entire thing, and just is what it is. So lost a little bit, decided to rebuy with the rest of the cash in my pocket, and let's get back to work. All right, so a little while later, we look down at ace 10 in the cutoff. There's an open limp by EP2, and this table, by the way, has been really, really good up to this point. There's like 3 very soft spots in the game, and pretty much every single pot is going multi-way to it. So this is one of those where it seems like this player specifically is adjusting by limping more, trying to get involved in non-bloated pots and still keep all of those fishy players involved. But that being said, I'm still going to punish this with a raise, just kind of giving you that context so you know this isn't the kind of person who I think is doing this randomly, and I don't think they're doing this with like any two cards. This is someone who looks to be on the taggy side of the spectrum. They did just bink a high hand and are getting paid for that, so they feel a little bit good at the moment. And let's continue on with the hand. So raise to 25, totally standard over an open limp. Somehow nobody else continues except for him. Okay, not totally shocking based upon the way he's been playing pre-flop. Flop, top pair, top kicker. Pretty good so far. They check, and I decide to fire for 20 into a pot of 57. So at this point, I'm totally happy with the bet, totally happy with the size, and totally happy when I end up getting called by EP2. Turn is the 5 of spades, and they lead into me for 55, which is a little bit weird and unexpected. Again, there's no history, no dynamic between he and I. I think we've played exactly one pot together, and it was very inconsequential. So this is a little bit strange to say the least. I'm definitely not going to fold. The only question is, do I call or do I come over the top and raise here? And I just don't see raising doing a tremendous amount. I mean, I'm kind of repping super strong at that point. And one thing I think is important when you're kind of thinking about spots like this, especially when you're reviewing them off table, is to consider running them through a solver. So I went and ran this through GTO Plus, and here it is. And this is back to the flop decision where we fire for 20, and you notice that ace 10 is mostly a bet. It's mixed, but mostly a bet, and our combo of spade hearts is definitely in there as well. That's all well and good. But you notice that when we bet and they call, they should never be betting that turn. It's not really doing anything. In fact, 100% of their range should be checked in this situation. So we're kind of out of solver land at this point because they are just so far out of it. And that can make things a little tricky in terms of determining, okay, like what would the solver do here when they do something that the solver would never ever suggest, like this play. So I end up assuming that they're going to make more mistakes if I just call here than if I raise and kind of allow them to play a little closer to perfect. So I decided to just go for the call. Going to be giving Rivers action a tremendous amount of the time, and the deuce of diamonds is no different. So when they fire for 125, I just think for a moment, I'm like, well, it's a really bizarre line. If you have me beat, I don't know what the heck you have me beat with, but if you have me beat, fine, here it is. You're just going to end up getting a gift, but I think more often than not, I'm going to end up shipping this, and in this spot, he mucks pretty quickly, and end up shipping a nice little pot. And in this final hand of the session, I wake up with aces in the small blind. There's an open limp by EP2, raised to 25 with a cutoff, and here we are. And the EP2 is one of those fishy players that has made this game very excellent so far, and the cutoff is a player who I'd classify as kind of middle-aged, but seems very comfortable playing, no qualms whatsoever. Originally, when they bought in at this table, they had some purple chips, which is always something I take note of whenever someone kind of has or tries to buy in with higher denomination chips than is, quote, normal for that game. So seems to be quite comfortable where they are. And at this stage, I'd been a little bit snug just because the game is playing pretty darn fishy and there's just not a tremendous amount of opportunity for me to get involved, and I'm running a little carded at the moment. So ended up 3-betting here. I really see no reason to flat this and try to get sneaky or tricky. If the fish is going to give you action, the fish is going to give you action. So I didn't price it so high that the fish couldn't possibly put in another 75, but I also don't see any reason to just call the 25 ISO either. So went to a 3-bet for 80, end up getting called by just the cutoff, go heads up to a 5-3 deuce board with a flush draw on it. We don't have the ace of diamonds, and I decide to check here. So let's back up one quick tick here, since I did post this hand on the Red Chip Poker Discord, and there was a lot of conversation about it, and pretty much every single person wanted to fire this, some for closer to the normal 1/3 pot, some for closer to full pot, but I thought this would be an interesting one to run through the solver. So the solver in this situation, if I look at kind of the smaller bet option and look at our aces, it's a lot of betting. But if we zoom in and zoom in really hard, you notice the solver likes checking this 1.1% of the time. That's the solver approved, baby. This is a good check. Yeah, I'm just messing around. This is obviously, according to the solver, a much better fire than a check like I did. But one of the reasons why I checked this is because I thought that the villain was going to bet pretty much 100% in their range, and they would react poorly against a check call and also a check raise. Obviously, I'm never going to check fold here. It's only 3.5 SPR. There's zero reason whatsoever to be thinking about, hey, how do I get away from this hand? It's more, hey, how do I pile in the most amount of money possible with the largest edge. So I thought that the best way to do that was to go for a check raise, and that's exactly what I did. So they fired for 100 and I check raised up to 215. Now, I think some people would just consider check shoving here, just simply because, stack size wise, it's about a pot size raise, give or take. And it's like, well, what are you really going to do? Any check raise is strong. Yes, any check raise is strong, but a check raise to 215 looks so absolutely bizarre that if someone's a little bit more aggressive, they may look at that and say, that looks kind of weak and stupid and airy. It would probably never be done with aces, kings, or queens, and as such, maybe they get a little ahead of themselves and think, okay, this is an opportunity for me to 3-bet shove, right? It's the only real size you can give them that gives them room to even consider making a 3-bet shove with any sort of bluff in this scenario. The other benefit to the smaller size is that if your opponent does have something like 8s, 9s, 10s, those kind of overpairs to the board, I think they could possibly talk themselves out of bet calling if you decide to check shove, but they might talk themselves into bet continuing when they are facing that smaller size. So I thought this had a whole bunch of good things going for it. And yes, you can make the argument to just check call here, strengthen up your check call range overall, induce bluffs and stuff on the turn, fine. But I think overall this is going to get the job done very, very profitably a large chunk of the time. I've had a lot of success running this kind of play in these kind of 3-bet pots at 1-2, 2-5. It tends to work out pretty nicely overall. And in this exact situation, they do oblige with a shove. I happily call it off, and we end up running it out, and they show pocket 5s. So, happens. What are you going to do? Really nothing you can do in this situation. Sometimes you're just going to end up losing that stack, and it didn't matter if I fired the flop, if I check called the flop. Either way, we're getting it all in, and our opponent is going to end up stacking us a good chunk of the time. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, all you can focus on is how do you maximize value against your opponent's range. And again, Solver can be a great way to check those kind of things and look at opportunities and see where you or your opponents are deviating from the solve. But I think in this situation, just a little bit of run bad. What are you going to do? So like I said, this was the last hand of the session. I burned through that 1.3K that I brought for the session and said, you know what? I'm a little tired. Shorter session, yes, but I'm just going to head on home, go back and build my IKEA desk. So thank you, IKEA. And next time you want to sponsor this video, please do. That'd be wonderful. So obviously not a profitable session, down 1.3K, which is negative 520 per hour or negative 416 BB per 100. So not particularly good, but at the same token, if you can't stand to lose 2.5 buy-ins playing poker, then chances are you're playing too high and should move down. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to let me know. And if you enjoyed this solver and want to do more solver work like it, you can always pick up your copy of GTO Plus with the GTO Plus bundle over on redchippoker.com/GTO. Learn all about the bundle, get the entire software as well as a complete course showing you how to use the software step by step. It is very, very good, and solving nowadays is very popular and for good reason. So again, if you need anything, don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you back with vlog episode number 5 shortly. And in the meantime, good luck out there and happy grinding.